hey man, like happy 420 and whatever. So oh, I forgot what we're advertising. Oh, anyways, enjoy the video.
Holy shit, Robbie. You have a master's degree in being a dumbass?
Oh yeah, it's a podcast. Woo.
Welcome to the Aquarium Guys podcast.
Da, 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 da. I don't think that much copywritten, but I'm your host, Rob Zolson.
I'm literally confused why you're doing that. I'm Jim Colby.
And I met him on the show, and I know what he was trying to do, but he failed at it because he's white.
I kept in pace.
White trash.
I did it best.
You're white trash.
Well, today, before we get into a little bit of our, weekly news that we try to share a little bit of our life, I'd like to introduce our guest. We have Kate Milburn here on the podcast to talk a little bit about our topic today, cannabis in the aquarium. Kate, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Now, Kate, I'm just going to give a slight background before we get into our little off-topic rants here. Kate, just so people understand, you are a cultivation specialist in management at a large farm in the United States, medical marijuana farm in the United States, and also happen to be a fish expert of your own, and are here to help us through our use of cannabis in the aquarium.
Yep, that's the purpose.
All right, we're going to have a million questions, but more importantly, Jimmy's high as right now.
I am not. Are we going to talk about stonefish tonight?
Yes, Jimmy. Yes.
I'm just glad that you ate edibles for the cause, so thank you, Jimmy.
I not only ate edibles for the cause, I shoved one up my butt.
Jimmy, I have this fine jar of the grossest ditchweed that I found from some terrible dealer in Perham.
Oregano?
Now that weed's legal in Minnesota, I figured I'd bring it to the cause. So my gift to you?
No. I smelt it earlier.
Worse than resweed.
It smelled like dill pickles.
I think they call it dog shit weed. So that is the strain of it. Enjoy.
Yeah, I can't wait to get a hold of that and maybe throw it out in my yard this summer to get rid of the mosquitoes.
I will be sure to put pictures on the Aquarium Guys podcast Discord. So check that out. The link's in the description. Come join the community. Now, gentlemen, I have a little bit of news, and you can share yours in a moment, but I want to go first this time. I was tickled pink. I was searching on Facebook Marketplace, because that's what we do in, northern Minnesota for our free time, and I found the mythical unicorn that I thought I would never find again. Walmart Mars units. Your favorite, Jimmy.
I saw the pictures, and I giggled the whole time. What dumbasses.
Okay, so your favorite Walmart Mars units. For those that are listening, you probably listened to some very old podcasts, some of the original podcasts we've done, talking about these particular units. So if you remember back in time, what was it the last time they had them? 2015?
Yeah, they've been out of it for quite a while already. So
it's been a long time that they've been out of the game. Walmart used to have these fantastic little units where they sold aquarium fish out of that not a single Walmart would ever really take care of because they didn't have any trained specialists. The people that dropped fish off would literally just drop the bags, not care, let them die, and keep bringing them stock. So these units weren't really well maintained. And when they broke, they would have a service technician come out, and then there was no fish specialist maintaining the aquariums. So when this whole program nationwide got cut, what were they to do with all of these units? It was up to the local Walmarts to figure it out. Some donated, some sold them, and
our local Walmart threw them in a dumpster.
Some put them in the dumpster.
Yep.
They
watched them do it.
Yeah, they did not know. So a lot of them don't exist. See, some of them got lucky. These particular two of them, Jimmy, that I found on Facebook Marketplace, were donated to a local Christian camp in rural Minnesota.
Why do people hate God? Why would you do that? Why would you give that to these beautiful children of the corn, this church? Why would you do that? I hate these things so much.
So you hate them, but for me, it's nostalgia. Like, I grew up with that. You know, besides you being my saving grace of giving me fish, that was the only other outlet to see fish.
At Walmart.
At Walmart.
But, I mean, if you want to talk about nostalgia, my brother used to give me noogies. I can give you a noogie right now, and you can take it way back.
I mean, think about it. Without Jimmy stocking the Benjamin Franklin 5 and Dine store,
Years and years.
Walmart was my only hope to have fish growing up. That was it. So for me, it's nostalgic, but I get it because I learned my valuable lesson purchasing these.
So the funny thing is that I asked you, I put you in a trap and I caught you.
No, did you know?
I did. I said, how much did you pay? And you told me, and I went, oh, they didn't pay you to take them away?
No.
I'd have made them pay me to take it away.
Oh, no. They listed these online for sale. I messaged, and so did a bunch of other local fish enthusiasts. And, of course, I recognized a bunch of names because it is a small community in the area. So I was the first one there because, of course, I messaged them late at night saying I'll be there in the morning first thing with the truck and trailer. So I sure shit got there.
And 8 guys in a bobcat.
No. They said that because again, it's a Christian camp. And let me tell you, this place is a wealthy Christian summer
So they
camp.
have their own bobcat?
They have their own Zamboni and hockey rink, like indoor hockey rink.
And once again, they did not pay you to take this thing away.
They did not pay me to take this thing away.
You're a sucker.
I am a sucker. So I get there, and I haggle back and forth. I get the pair. For 7 bones, right?
Which is 10 bones too much. They should have paid you $300 to take it away.
Now, is it going to be worth more later? Yes, because I'm going to have to put new pumps, new connectors, plumbing. I'm going to have to rebuild these things.
And UV sterilizers.
Yeah,
sterilizers would cost you $250.
Oh, for sure.
I could go on a rant.
Yeah, you can go on a rant. You both hate these units. Now, I'm sitting there, and they have, 12 kids. When I say kids, like, close to 18, 16-year-old teenagers sitting there, and we're all trying to heave-ho this thing out, and there's no lifting these things. You can't grab them.
Really? There's no handles on them?
There's no handles.
The people that designed this didn't put any handles on there.
None whatsoever.
They use lead-based tanks, because I swear to God, the freaking tanks are like slate.
Oh, someone said only 7 bones. I only know one. 700 bones. Yes.
$700 they paid for these two things.
700 bones.
And I said they're
a waste of $700.
For 2.
For 2, yeah. And I said they should have paid you $300 to take them away. Here's $300 to take it away.
I don't know if you know math. That's 350 bones per.
Or you're still $1,000 short because they should have paid you $300 to take it away.
Anyways, moving on. So we try to move these things, and we all try to heave ho, and we give up.
What?
We finally get them to bring out their Kubota skid steer. And then the skid steer is having problems balancing out because of the steel frame. We get it on the trailer. We're having problems getting, because we're buckling out the trailer, getting these things on. And I'm thinking originally when I bought these things, I'm like, I wonder if there's any way to take these apart so I could put them in my basement, so I could own them. No.
Not a chance.
There's no way I can fit them in my basement, especially because it took, 12 people to lift it. And they couldn't lift it in a skid steer to get it. So
with a metal frame, you could never get the metal frame down.
Steel frame.
Oh, it's steel. I'm pretty sure it's granite.
Granite.
That's what they
frame.
use.
Yeah, granite frame. So then we brought it to our favorite place, Dee's Fish Co.
Right.
And Dee's Fish
as a practical joke. As a practical joke.
Right. So that was Dee's Fish Co.'s money, and now not a practical joke. They were tickled pink. So I called up a bunch of Dee's Fish Co. Fanboys and the community, and we all collectively got there, backed the trailer up to the front of the store, and spent the next hour losing our testicles, heave-hoing those into the store.
Thank you for not calling me.
You're welcome.
Because I would not have come.
I know you wouldn't. You were the last person, in fact, on my list to call for this.
So myself and our friend Ty, we hauled 3 of these. The 2 of us hauled 3. And we had hydraulic jacks, and we had them up on these metal wheelie dealy things and stuff. And when we put them down and filled it up full of water, the 4 little pegs that are the size of a 50-cent piece all punched through the floor.
Oh, that was the beauty. One of them, the little pegs broke right off. Yeah. And then we could Jamaican bobsled it down the hill.
Yeah, that's best.
It was a lot of fun. So regardless, we got them in the store. We're getting them set up, and they're actually working so far quite nicely as long as we're replacing some of the pieces. The way that they set them up is relatively inefficient because they wanted to have 2 separate units right next to each other. They want to have a cold and hot unit, but yet they are touching with no insulation. So you're going to be heating one side while cooling the other. It's going to just drive your electric bill up the wall. It's like literally throwing money at a unit. Makes no sense to me. So as long as you're either heating the whole thing or cooling the whole thing, you're fine. But they are a nightmare from that one reason that the one bottom rack was supposed to be goldfish with chiller, and then the 2 top racks were supposed to be heat, but then you open the canopy below and find out, oh, they're connected.
Right. And These units are beautiful. I've seen a lot of them set up very nicely in people's garages or whatever. But here, I just want to give you one bit of advice other than don't buy them.
Leave them there.
Most people buy them, use them for a little bit, and then they put them in the garage. And here in the Northland, they don't drain the pumps. And what happens is if there's water in the lines, the pumps freeze and it destroys the pumps.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so, I mean, when you're buying things, don't assume that everything's going to work, because a good chance that they're not going to work because it's been frozen a couple times.
So the story of these things, right? These were kept, as far as we can find out with the records and what was written on them in the notebooks. These must have come from the Brainerd Baxter Walmarts and
That's a far distance.
And donated directly to the camp and stored in their heated gymnasium and never moved since and never used since.
You know, what you could use them for is a storm shelter, because if a tornado comes, you could all crawl underneath the son of a bitch and never die, because these things are amazingly...
Well, that's what they're doing in Twister 2. They're going to take their belt loop and attach it to the side and hold on for dear life.
You're not going to go anywhere.
For sure. So come check it out at Dee's Fish Co. It was a lot of fun. I'm still missing my testicles, so if you find them on the floor, contact me.
I'm just going to kick it out the door.
For sure. Next thing is, I don't know why, it hurts my brain, but I'll start the story. We're doing our own fish club, and we've been doing it now for quite a few months.
About 6 months.
Lakes Aquarium Club in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. We've done our own little fish club here, and we meet once a month, and our entire idea for the fish club is not for a club to benefit the fish keepers. Our entire idea is to, one, give more publicity to gain more fish keepers, teach children about aquariums and fish, and donate to local communities and schools and education areas with aquariums. So we have donated to, I believe it was Lake Park School. We have Boys and Girls Club Thrift Store next that we're going to be setting up an aquarium for. That is a free daycare for our community. So,
yeah, I purchased that 55-gallon tank.
Right. That's what we're going to continue doing for our club.
Yep, and we're going to donate that. And it's just sitting out in my garden shed right now.
And part of the club facilities are going to be hosting fish swaps. And we've done 3 now. 2? 3?
3? I don't know.
Math hurts. And it has been attracting
Because you've lost your testicles.
I've lost my testicles. That's part of my brain. I know anatomy.
Yeah.
That's where I do all my thinking, too.
That's where the thinking happens. So we have now done fish swaps in our small community, in our Lakes area community.
That just sounds dirty. It's kind of like wife swapping, but we did fish swaps.
We did fish swaps.
Yeah.
And I'll take your fish, you take my fish. No one asks questions.
Don't know questions.
Right. And it worked really well, honestly. We've attracted a bunch of different people from even the Twin Cities. Duluth area people came.
Which is 200 miles away.
Yeah, I mean, we got some real good traffic. We did it on the club's back. The brewery donated, our local brewery, Buck's Mill, if you want to know more information, donated the space. And we did it all for free. If you wanted to set up a table, it didn't cost you a penny. You can come set up. And we had quite a great showing. It inspired a lot of people. The people that were there said, hey, I like this so much, I want to do this in the cities. Then we did a community with Tong. We did a swap. Adam was there with me. We went down there, had a great showing.
That was a good swap.
That was a great swap. Between this, Joe's Shrimp Shack put on that wonderful show we did this last summer. Now he's going to be doing it indoors, and that was a huge success due to the lack of the event of the Minnesota Aquarium Society. So there's all these things popping up because we don't have it happening. Well, now the Minnesota Aquarium Society is looking at this going, wow, this is really successful. We got to get in the game. Mm-hmm. So now the Minnesota Aquarium Society is like, you know what? We like the idea. Let's do a swap. So they decided to cut all of the rules, regulations, and BS and take what was working for everyone else, like us and others, and do a swap. And more power to them. You know, they're charging $50 a table. I think they charge $20 for like a half a table, however they do it. Sure, it's a little expensive, but I get it. They have to charge something. And I'm happy that they're not doing all these different rules and other things. And
they're not
nitpicking.
They're not getting their space for free like we are up here.
No, they have to rent it. We got it donated, right? We get it.
So basically,
it's the metro. They gotta pay more than we do.
Yeah, and they're covering their costs and stuff. But fantastic, good for them for going out there and trying to help educate the public and create some excitement.
I'm so tickled to see that we up here, Tong, Joe, all of them, peer pressured them into doing a fish swap, and I hope it kicks ass. But here's the big asterisk.
What?
I just looked at the date.
What is it?
I just looked at the date. It's on the Super Bowl.
No.
They're doing the swap on the Super Bowl. So when you hear this, the swap will probably already be over. But I'm like, come on.
Wow.
Who at Moz sat there and PR'd this. Like, did they workshop it? Like, guys, what's going to work for you? I don't know. Could it be Saturday? No, I'm busy then. What if we did it on Sunday?
That is too bad.
Sunday. So they're doing it literally.
That's going to cut.
It's noon to 5 on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, but the Super Bowl doesn't start till 7, if you think about it.
The Super Bowl is 5. Super Bowl has always been 5.
Oh.
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
I don't pay attention.
And you got to get your pre-drunk on.
Yeah, and the idea is that they, catch Metro people, fine, but these swaps catch people 3 hours plus, coming all directions. No one's going to do that when they're trying to cook all day and prepare for their party. It's just a shame.
Well, it might be a learning curve. We could be wrong. It could be very successful.
So if you're a Moz member and you listen to this, just El Kabong them and pick a different date next time because we want this to succeed for you people.
Absolutely.
All right. What do you boys got for information?
I got nothing, Adam. What do you got?
I'm good. I got nothing right now.
You got nothing? You got nothing?
I'm starting to work on the Pissy Aquarist.
We're so excited.
We're excited about that. For those of you who are listening for the first time, on occasion, once in a while, very seldom, does Adam go off on a tyrant.
Yeah, not that often, really.
And loses his effing mind.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we're going to start a new thing called the Pissy Aquarist. I've got people right now working on the intro music and stuff. And we're going to put Adam in a padded room, and we're just going to let him rant for 5 minutes while the rest of us go to the bathroom and take a pee. It's kind of like going to a Bon Jovi concert when Richie Sambora would sing, you'll go get a beer. So now when Adam's ranting, you can just go, I got to take a leak and come back. He'll still be going on about the same thing.
I'll be back. Don't worry about it.
But Adam was talking, and he's going to try to do good things and better things.
Excellent. Now, we do have a new section in the Discord. I put up, because we have so many people now suggesting different topics that we should do for future episodes, that I do have what's called new podcast topics set form section in Discord. And immediately, the first post, seeing the event schedule, because we're doing this podcast live on Discord, they said, Pissy Aquarius 420 episode, Could you get them fired up and stoned for us, please?
Adam's a lot of fun when that happens.
Yeah. My wife's never seen me that way. She's never seen me drunk either.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I've seen you drunk a couple of times.
She's heard the stories, Jim. You were not very helpful with the stories.
You can blame me for getting you drunk maybe once. I got your grandmother drunk once, and so I'm good.
All right. Well, if that does it for news, then we'll carry on. I've been looking forward to this topic and have done my own research, so hopefully I can bring something to the table, but I am so excited to have our expert on. Can I say Katie or Kate to start off with?
Either is fine.
Either. Well, number one, what got you into fish before we get into your background?
Okay, so I started with reptiles, and then I'm from California, so we made a cross-country move out to the East Coast in 2020, 2019, something like that.
What kind of reptiles?
So I specialize in large colubrids. I do a lot of spilotes, stuff like that. False water cobras.
All right, hold on. I'm not a snake or turtle guy. There's a lot of big words that was just thrown out.
A lot of big words.
Help me out,
Adam knew them all. Adam knew every one of them.
So tiger rat snakes, king rat snakes. I've got a rhino iguana back there. I've got a tegu back there. I keep some Prassinia. I think people call them green keelbelly lizards.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Stuff like that. I did dart frogs for a long time, and then I ended up keeping, false water cobras are probably my favorite thing I keep. They love fish. So I have to start keeping convicts because goldfish are trash, right? We're not trying to feed goldfish to anything. And then I ended up hold on, wait a minute. Fish are kind of cool. Went down this rabbit hole. And when I moved and had to kind of start over anyway, you're packing up everything, putting it in boxes, I was like, okay, set up a couple more tanks than what I had, and then COVID happened, and they gave me a stimulus check that I really didn't. Not gonna say I didn't need, but there was definitely enough in the budget for a fish tank, and then it was just fucking downhill from there. And that was probably about 4 years ago.
That's usually how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad, and I was already in the habit of $600 on animals. Why not go? Let's do it. So fish was not a huge jump. It was pretty as far as, I don't know how well you guys know the reptile industry or anything, but fish are pretty affordable in the long run. Not a bad gig.
Now, people need to understand, like, they're going to go with this, like, oh, COVID, it's only been, like, what, 4 years of you having fish? They don't understand, like, how aggressive you've been into it. Like, you need to tell them what you have on hand now and what level of fish keeping you got up to in that amount of time.
Okay, so I've dabbled in a little bit of saltwater. I don't really have anything. I just got that water box for Christmas, so we're trying to get seahorses up, trying to get my other, like, the room behind this one is my actual fish room in the house. My Mabu puffer down here, and I've got 4 different species of bichir in that tank with him. So we've got Senegalis and Litcheri, Weekseye, and I'm forgetting something, a Delhizai in there. And then the tank above that, I've got my group of Amazons, which I've been getting spawning behavior, but they're in there with my clown loaches. So I'm like sick, my puffers are laying eggs, and then my loaches come out and eat them. So now I've got to get...
haven't killed the loaches.
I don't have any aggression issues.
Interesting.
You know what? I'm gonna knock on wood.
That's because they're all stoned.
I feed pretty generously. I'm pretty good about that, but I have never had a problem. Not with my Mabu, not with my pea puffers, not with my Amazons. I'm getting a group of Congos this year, so we'll see if they want to murder anything. And then I have a Fahaka on my list too, because people say if anything's going to kill something, it's that. So definitely branching out into like puffers a little bit more.
You know, in that whole description she gave, I learned one thing, Jimmy, is that I need to be stoned to pronounce anything correctly. She immaculately crushed stoned. Every pronunciation.
Everything.
Even Bashir. Like, you nailed it.
Very passionate about what I do, which I don't know. The fish hobby has been oddly a little more forgiving. Reptile people are very like anal to the
Reptile
point.
people
like,
can be assholes.
They will make an example of you every time. So like I've kind of tried to mind my P's and Q's, and if I do fudge something, like try to do the best I can. But thank you. I know what I keep. I don't keep everything, but I like to do what I do well.
So now in your household, is there anybody in your house that you can depend on helping you with this stuff, or are you in this alone?
I have my husband, and he's not a fish person, but he likes the fish and seems to like me decently. So I work a crazy work schedule, right? I go 10 p.m. to 6:30 in the morning, and then he's a day walking normie, and he's going to school right now too. So like we're constantly in and out of this house.
He's a normie.
So I can be like, hey, like, can you drop frozen food? I gave them pellets this morning, and he knows what needs what, right? I tell him Alfie needs clams. He's like, I got it. Like, I'll feed the fish. I got you.
Yeah, Jimmy...
He can do a water change, which is immaculate. That's been a lifesaver a couple of times, but usually it doesn't come down to that.
Yeah, Jimmy, you're a day walking normie. She's a night walker. What am I at second shift? That's my real question.
Oh, second shift sucks.
Part-timer?
A filthy casual?
a part-timer. I like that.
A guy that doesn't really care about my life?
A guy that works in pajama bottoms, but business attire on top.
Okay, quick tangent. I sat there. There's a guy at the gas station named Clint. I see him every time I go there, at least twice a week, because I stop at the gas station for this gas station for lunch. They got this place called Blue Taco. Another story.
He pulls up in his Tesla.
I'm getting lunch. I'm sitting there, and we always have this little back and forth retard banter. And he's just sitting there. It's like, he leans in. I mean, just awkward as hell, just like face to face. You ever just get bored and sick of being home? I'm like, man, do I? But this is the only time I get to wear pants is coming to see you. And there's 6 people deep behind me, and they all took one giant step back behind me.
I would too.
Yeah. So it was great. Anyways, bad tangent. More into your professional career. So now we got into your hobbies behind you, and you're on camera, so we're seeing the racks of snakes and fish behind you.
Yeah, and it's chaos right now too. It's absolutely everything's all over the place.
Which we love.
So I do have a question. Did you need a permit for the Tegu, or do we have to block that out?
So technically he's legal.
Good catch.
He's grandfathered in.
Okay,
so
I just wanted to make sure, because that we might have had to.
Yeah, I work in Florida. I live in Georgia. I had him before they outlawed them here. Okay. So I did have to get him registered, but he just turned 14. So he's just a grumpy old man anyway, so he's in like retirement mode out here, but yeah, no, technically no permit, but he's registered.
Well,
when you need another one, let me know.
In the professional sphere, Yeah, in the professional sphere. Tell us a bit about your professional background. The information you gave me, and we can't talk about certain details, but you said that you work for a medical marijuana farm, a large medical marijuana farm. Go more about what you do there.
So to elaborate on that a little bit more, I work for a huge multi-state operator. My facility specifically is a 750,000 square foot indoor grow. We're all hydroponic. Yeah. Big bitch. One of my hallways, like to get down from one end to the other, I think we've timed it at like a quarter mile long from the door. So you get your steps in there. Specifically, I'm in leadership, so I lead a team of about 15 to 20 people in our mom prop, veg, and clone production aspect of our building. So anything that's in our genetic library that we're taking production off of. So you, just like we do with stem plants in the aquarium, right? You're gonna take a sample off of your mom, you plug it, it gets roots, you send it into a vegetative room to get a little bigger, you send it into a flower room, trigger it to flower, and then you send it off to be harvested. But I don't really usually get involved with too much of the other side of things. If I want to work some overtime, I'll go work with our harvest team.
That was a whole lot of steps really fast.
It's like raising children.
Yeah.
And you release them into the wild.
Yeah, you just fill them with corn pops, you shake them a bit, you shit their pants, you knock them out the door.
Yeah, so you'll just get them to root in there. They spend maybe 2 weeks as a baby. You'll spend maybe 3 weeks in veg, which is a longer day period, more light. So they're not worried about fruiting. It's like summertime, so they're taking up all of their necessary nutrients.
I'm going to come back to the bouncing ball because I got a lot of questions along the way.
Oh, boy.
From stem to harvest.
Absolutely.
How long does it take to go from stem to harvest?
Stem to harvest, we're running like 56 days.
Wow, that's quick.
Yeah, so technically if we're including veg, maybe it's longer. Maybe it's more like 80 with everything included, because I think we measure flower from once it gets to flower to end.
Beats the shit out of avocados from Mexico.
Yeah. And then it's nothing. They switch into flower, then we'll go for like a shorter photo period, like what winter will happen, so you trigger that annual to fruit. She makes her buds, and then she gets sent on her way to the slaughterhouse, and on down the line from there.
So
mostly what I do is like I work in operations, so like we do work with the plants, like that's our job tail, that's the labor we do. My job specifically is more people building at this point. I'm a people manager, so I've got a couple people. I see a level of leadership below me, and then there's all of our like actual labor team. So I get to do a little bit of everything, realistically.
So my question to you is, I'm sure some of this stuff is some pretty high-end stuff, correct?
Yeah.
And so do the employees get shook down when they leave the plant at night to make sure they don't have a pocket full of something?
It's very rare somebody gets shook down, but in the instance that they do, either somebody has seen something, or I'm pretty sure I can talk about this. We run a version of internal security, and there is, at any given point in that building, you probably are on camera from 6 different angles, and that's on like the conservative end. If you're out in like a big open space, it's probably more like 15. And we have people monitoring our facility all the time, because we run 24/7. Lights never go out, so we just keep moving.
You've got security guards there, I'm assuming? Yeah,
we have security on site and like the whole 9. And it's very, like, it's not really easy. No one's ever working by themselves, and we do have a killer team. So usually if there's someone acting suspicious, it doesn't get that far. One of my people is going to come up and be like, hey, so-and-so's acting kind of shifty in the flower hall, like maybe you need to keep an eye on that, and it's usually a said and done deal from there.
Do you want to know what I find amusing? There's more cameras watching that than there were that were watching the Canadian Gold facility when they had that guy shoving gold 1-ounce blanks up his ass. And he stole $242,000 worth of gold.
What type of out-of-pocket information is that, Adam?
That is
wow.
That came from Adam's head from somebody's butt.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I'd like to apologize. Dalton and I are the only 2 people that are not buzzed here, so forgive me.
So I don't think I'd want to keister a bunch of plants, honestly. I mean,
the closest we ever got, I think, is this one girl was working. So when they go into flower, you'll have to do plant work. You'll do like a defoliation and a prune to keep them from being big, ugly bitches on the table, right? This girl comes up to our break room, and our plant health people are in there, which is like supervisors and up. And she's wearing jeans. And like, if you've ever been in a pair of women's jeans in your life, you know the front pockets don't hold shit. Not a damn thing. You're lucky if you can get your lighter in there. So it's very obvious she has something in her pocket. Man, they're like, hey, like, what's going on? What you doing? What you got there? And she empties her pockets out, and it's straight up wet bud, like, right off the plant. You just strip that out your pocket,
right.
and then she starts telling this nonsense about, like,
None of it's
I
dry.
brought it from home. I didn't know I couldn't have it in my facility. Like, I just bought it this morning.
And it's wet.
Yeah, other than that, I haven't seen. People are surprisingly good about not stealing.
I would be worried personally once the general public knows about what's going on, and it doesn't take a long time, if something's happening in a area that people know what's going on. And I'm surprised that like a whole bunch of freaking renegades haven't just tried to run over the plant, in the middle of the night with 50 people on motorcycles or something. It just
Jesus, Jim.
what?
Yeah, it wouldn't really go that great. I know. So we not only have security, but like they be packing. They're not cops, but I don't know what exactly their job title is. I don't really interact
But they're
with them
packing.
often.
Hold on.
Yeah, they're packing.
Tea time. For the listeners, this is an aquarium podcast. You have to understand, we're going to do a lot of questions about cannabis in the aquarium. That's the topic here. But we're giant man children, and we don't get to talk to pot experts that often. This is a true pot expert from a massive, probably one of the largest pot farms in the United States. This is cool, and we can't help it. We're going to have some extra
I just find
questions
this
tonight.
fascinating as hell.
So, Jim, you know what they probably are? Not knowing anything of where this is or anything. They're probably all ex-military that are given fully automatic weapons.
All right,
and they are probably ex...
Back to the different conversation. So
Let's talk about
the
monkeys for a
strains.
second.
The strains. We have a question here from the audience. How many different strains do you guys produce in this 700,000 plus square feet?
So I know what I run in my genetic library, and I think we're sitting at I have 3 mom rooms. Each mom room has 27 tables. I hold 40 plants to a table. Usually it's only one strain per table, but we get a lot of different stuff. I'm sitting at like 37 in rotation right now, but my building is it's one of 11. So mine's the biggest. All of these other buildings on site are a 24K, but they alternate other genetics. So during the day, they'll be like, oh, hey, we need a batch of these for over there, and they'll send me a big rotation of like, hey, I've never seen that before, but we're going to send it to flower anyway. And we do stuff like that. So probably at any given time in my building across site, there's probably somewhere around 50, 60 or so.
50, 60 across all buildings.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Now, can you name like some of them, or is that classified information?
Oh yeah. So no, we can go into description.
Is Pineapple Express really a
we're
thing,
one
or
of
is
the
that just
largest
a
medical
movie?
companies in Florida. So it's a lot of like, if you're on the East Coast, it's probably genetic stuff. If you are smoking weed of any kind, we run like a lot of Pineapple Upside Down Cake, Ray Bay, Hippie Crasher, 9-Pound Hammer, Freedom Flowers, Sunshine State OG. We run Khalifa Kush. We run Khalifa Mints. We run, what else are we running?
Holy hell.
It sounds like people are high when they're naming this stuff. I'm just thinking.
They usually are, and then so if you've ever, to people who don't get it, if you've ever seen like racehorses have some bullshit ass names, right? But it's all like lineage based.
Right.
And essentially, some people try to stay true to that, but if you take the time to produce what's either genetically a new thing, or people even will take like a phenotype of something and then rename it as like a new strain. Kind of like people name species, right? You'll get inspired and pick some random shit, or you name it after yourself, or like.
Oh, don't
so
get
on
me
and so
started on
forth.
needle dick scientists.
Oh no.
I'm just pretty sure I don't want to smoke something called Adam El Nashard. It's like, hey, this is some good stuff.
It would be hairy, that's for sure.
Be hairy.
Anyways, we're going to have questions, and I know we're going to have a lot of newbies ask the question, what's the difference between hydroponics and aquaponics?
Okay, so aquaponics is you're using aquaculture. There are fish present. Hydroponics, there is no. Sometimes people in a hydroponic setup will run in deep water culture. So we're reusing the same water. We're culturing the same kind of probiotic bacteria in there. But we're not hosting any other life in there. We are just providing nutrient for the plants. Aquaculture, that's where you see people where they have tanks of tilapia, or people will raise all kinds of other things that are putting those nitrates out that'll feed your plants above, and then they recirculate the water that way.
Is there any special nutrients that you can talk about that you give to your particular specimens for farming?
Really, you can use anything it's weed, right? Cannabis is, just to give everybody a little bit background, naturally you can find cannabis from Southeast Asia all the way up. So we're finding it in the Himalayas, we're finding it in Siberia, which is where like our autoflower specimens come from. So she's not picky. She's not really super pH sensitive, doesn't like high alkaline things like most plants do, but to be f***ing it up, you kind of really like just gotta f*** it up. Like,
You got to go out of your way to mess it up.
it's not hard to grow at all, even a little bit. They do get a little greedy, so you'll switch from like when you're growing them out from veg and you make that switch to flower, they obviously have a higher like intake need, right? So you'll supplement more of your micronutrients and things like that, but it is basic horticulture. I've seen people struggle more with certain strains of like apples or even tomatoes, which tomatoes are pretty vigorous too, but some of those heirloom strains can be a little picky.
So
Yeah.
is your background I mean, do you have schooling for this, or is this something that you just kind of fell upon?
I have a GED, and then so I'm from California, and that's kind of just like the culture, right? I did a little bit of straight up, like, was 16 years old when I was doing this, so probably shouldn't have been. But I used to trim for out in like Humboldt County and stuff like that, and then I ran extract production for a little bit. So kind of always just dabbled in it, and then mainly my background is small business management. I used to manage a chain of like reptile stores in Southern California, so that retail was what I did. Worked for a reptile factory, if anybody's familiar with Carlos Martinez or anybody like that. Huge grateful for those people. They kept me floating for a long time. Would still work there if I didn't pack up my life and run away, but yeah, that's my background. And then we moved out here, and it's kind of, I live in South Georgia, North Florida area. There ain't shit going on out here. So it was like just the closest thing that would keep me going that didn't require me going to get an education or whatnot. But
Now, you said
no degree.
you live in Georgia?
I do.
So I want to talk to you about the monkey farm.
Oh no.
I do. I want to talk to you about
God.
Seriously.
Monkey farm.
So there's a plan for a $400 million monkey breeding facility in Southwest Georgia, and all the neighbors are losing their shit. It's been in the national news the last couple of nights. They're talking about raising 30,000 monkeys in order to use them for medical purposes. Have you heard any of this about?
I've not heard a lot about this, and I can imagine why people are freaking out. There's not far from me near the, I think it's off of the Wasissa River in Florida, or very, very close to there in the Panhandle area where we're at. Some dude back in the day was like, I'm going to put monkeys on this island, and I'm just going to be like it's going to be like an atrium thing, and apparently he didn't know monkeys can swim, and there's still fucking monkeys in Florida. And then I know there was that incident down in, I think, the Miami area, maybe a couple years ago, where somebody's pet escaped and bit somebody, and it was like a huge deal. People were like, oh, like, pet monkeys aren't as cute as they think they are. I don't know how Southwest, but I almost don't like the sound of that, just because I've seen how irresponsible some people manage their livestock here. And primates are one of the few things that's a hard no from me. Like, that's a no from me. I'm good on all of that.
So,
no. You gotta get the little tamarin monkeys, the ones that fit in your hand, because they won't kill you.
Yeah,
hold on. We're talking about monkeys here. We have so much to cover in so little time.
These are the long-tailed macaws, man. Let's talk.
Oh my god.
Macaques. Yeah, macaques are the ones that they released, and those swim like fish.
Yeah, no thank you.
30,000 long-tailed macaques, and they're going to sell them to universities and pharmaceutical companies for medical research, and they're worried that they might get out. If you've got 30,000 monkeys, one's going to get out for damn sure. I tell you that much.
And then the problem there is, like, so you go and buy a dog or anything from a breeder, and usually you sign a contract that is in some kind of detail about, like, you can't care for this animal anymore. It is to be returned. It's very common. But these facilities producing these specimens for medical use don't have any responsibility for them. So you end up with multiple cases of they either pick, like, a designated location, which they're monkeys, you're going to drop them somewhere and they're not going to stay there because they're monkeys. That's what they do. They're going to move.
Plus they carry
and they just get away with it. So you have all of these isolated populations of invasive primate species that are probably a huge biohazard threat if you think about it, that nobody has any responsibility for, not the pharmaceutical companies, not the universities. If you're lucky, they end up back in a zoo or some kind of facility like that, but there's very, very few facilities that are going to be able to accommodate, let alone 30,000 primates that a facility is going to be producing. That's a little scary.
I don't know why we can't just use people, because I have a long list of people that we could use for medical experiments.
Not only you guys derailed monkeys, now you're getting weird. All right, I'm bringing this back to topic.
No, we don't talk about monkeys.
I need to have...
So I have a question.
Thank you.
That's
for Christ.
relevant.
I hope it's about monkeys, Dalt.
Well, later. So what type of hydroponics do you use? Is it a mix? I know you said that you do some deep water culture, but is it just a flood and drain, or what do you do?
So our side of the building specifically, we're not doing it, and nowhere in the facility are we really doing a deep water culture, at least in my building. For context, everybody's super familiar with what I'm growing in. If you've ever bought aquatic plants and they've got that little rock wool plug on the bottom, that's exactly what I'm running them in. Whether the plant's this big or the plant's in flower, they are sitting in a rock wool cube the whole time.
The who cube?
Rock wool? Mineral wool? So that little spongy
Foamy,
piece of shit.
Circular, yeah.
Like when you buy an aquarium plant, Robs, and you open it up and it looks like it's insulation.
Oh, that nasty foamy shit that they put around that plastic basket?
Yeah, the stuff that you should have wrapped around your penis just so you don't reproduce anymore.
I'm dead serious. I was scared that it's going to be like insulation in my skin. Like, what is that shit?
So it is. That's exactly what it is. That is, you can go to your Lowe's or Home Depot, and the rock wool is a big brand that it's called, but it's all mineral wool. And what they do is, I think they treat it at a different point.
When you say wool, is this wool? W-O-O-L?
Yes.
W-O-O-L, wool, yeah,
Thank
absolutely. You. So what they're taking is they're taking basalt rock from like lava beds or whatever, and they're heating it and pulling fibers from it. And then to get insulation, I think they treat it, it's either, one of them is more finely refined than the other, and I'm not going to claim to know exactly which one it is right now. But what they do is they take that and they treat it with like a soaking agent to make it non-hydrophobic, because insulation naturally doesn't want to be wet, right? And then they send it to us, and it holds water, and I grow my plants in it.
What's beneficial about this? It sounds very inert.
So it is extremely inert, and that's the beautiful thing, right? So my facility runs off of, I think, 120,000 gallon RO system. We mix all of our own nutrients into our batch, and then we send through our irrigation system into these inert non-rock wool cubes. And what the appeal is here is that cannabis is notorious for picking up heavy metals. And when you send your bud off to be lab tested, she'll hold on to all of those things. So you're coming up with all of these nasty little elements that your plant has picked up as nutrient, basically, and is retaining in the bud that your patient is consuming. So the beauty of rock wool is that they're guaranteed, like, I think a less than 2% swing, like, as far as, like, impurities in what they're putting into this, like, product. And it's just basalt, so it's very, very inert anyway. It's not containing any of these other heavy things. So we get a more pure start when we're starting. So it's obviously, as you would imagine, not like plants like dirt. It's a little bit tricky to get them to go, but...
Let's say I caught my roommate, wink, wink, grabbing some seeds, and he just, like, put it in my, outside my window of my house and shoved them on my lawn. What type of impurities is he getting from my lawn?
God only knows, right?
Every chemical you've ever put on your lawn.
I'm assuming that you guys have had some, rando tests on garbage weed. What does the in the wild see on, shit in weed?
So I think the last thing I published, which if you guys are familiar with LinkedIn, there's a lot of, that's where you are going to get the most up-to-date information.
I'm not going to lie to you, Katie. When I think about impurities in weed, the last place I want to look is LinkedIn. I'm not going to lie to you.
Isn't that crazy? So me too.
Or Facebook.
I thought it is the only platform that is not actively banning or shadow banning or demonetizing or otherwise not. You try to promote cannabis on other platforms and you end up not getting any exposure because the algorithm hates you. So you end up with a little bit more of like a steady feedback. And the biggest things that are coming back from people I'm seeing are mercury. I'm not sure what they're doing, but what I'm assuming is most grows to save the money are providing like a raw cocoa product. So if you've worked with reptiles or whatnot and you've seen like a cocoa brick, that shit is refined. It's beautiful. It's dusty and a pain in the ass, but it is very, very well processed before it gets to you. What people are taking in a horticulture setting, you find trash, blunt wraps, all kinds of random ass shit that you'll have to go through and sift out before you go ahead and pot for your plants. So really, you basically anything you can imagine. I've seen all kinds of wacky things come back on a third-party test. I know we're testing at I think a less than 5%, 10% impurity rate or something like that.
Okay, next question. Thank you, Dalton. You kicked me off on this great tangent here. So if you're doing this hydroponic, right, and you're using, forgive me for lack of a better term, the shitty styrofoam insulation foam cubes.
Rockwool.
Right, Rockwool. Is that like a brand?
Rock wool.
Rock wool.
rock wool.
I always hear like Rockwell, like it's some fucking cell phone case or
made
something.
from rocks.
All right,
It's
rock
not
wool.
complicated.
Rock wool. It'll stick now. We're using pieces of rock wool. How far do you submerge it? Is it just the roots? Do you start the seed in the rock wool?
So we're not submerging anything, and we're kind of doing a 50-50 split in like my facility, specifically what my experience is. So part of what we're doing is a drip irrigation system, which relies on exactly what it sounds like. We're putting stakes in, and they're drip, 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 drip down into the cube, and they'll flush down out of the bottom. And then what we're doing elsewhere is a sub-irrigation method where we're filling troughs that the cubes sit in with water for a time set. So that cube is only ever going to hold so much water, right? And if you run a trial, you can see how long it takes it to hit that absorption point. So they're on a timer, and that'll kick on. Water will flow, we let them feed, and then it kicks back off. And we keep the cubes submerged that way.
Have you ever looked at like an NFT system where it, the water just flows? It's a really small amount of water. It's really aerated.
Yeah, so we do similar things like that. The problem is it's such a big facility. We actually run it on an automated track, which is we're kind of getting into that gray area of like, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but so everything's
we don't need
on like
that
a set
for what
timer,
we're
and
getting
we'll
at,
feed. When we feed out of the head, it hits the trough, right? So you actually get like a lot of aeration in your flow, and then she'll steady run off, and then the trough will be empty completely. You don't really want your weed. She doesn't want her feet wet all the time. Not really ideal. You can keep them wet for long periods of time, but the appeal of letting them feed and then dry back is that she has to go looking for water. So you get a much more substantial root system by allowing that dry back period.
It sounds like
That's
it's a
true
great
of most
place.
hydroponic plants.
Right.
It sounds like a great place to raise bettas.
Yeah.
You could do a side hustle and put bettas in those.
And then
I've done a system at home with Oscars and just like a general like South American mix of stuff, but it's weed. You could really grow it with basically anything but shitty African cichlids, I think.
Jimmy, you remember 2001 when they had those vases and then you put like a pothos plant and then you had like a beta and they said they eat the roots? Imagine you did that with a weed plant and then you made grandma be like, nah, it eats the roots. Look, it's sitting there laying on the bottom of the jar stoned as hell.
I mean, and if an Oscar's not mean enough.
Yeah, Oscar,
now get the Oscar a little loaded and stuff and see if he's aggressive.
So we pick your brain on these, and we really railed in those questions because we are trying to know as aquarists, how can I grow a pot inside of my aquarium? 1, 2, how can I use cannabis, either CBD, the plants, any type of THC, something for my fish, which I know every person in here has been listening for. Can I give it to my shrimp? How can I put it in my aquarium? Do I treat it like an almond leaf? There's a lot of littered questions. And 3, how have you been doing it? So start with the first one. How can we grow pot plants, whether hemp, whatever, in our aquarium?
In our neighbor's aquarium.
It is legal now in the state of Minnesota. For here, we can have, 8 pot plants, 7 pounds of actual dried plant.
For personal use, 7
for
pounds.
personal use on hand, which
7.
is f***ing ridiculous.
I thought it was 2, not 7.
No, 7. 7
pounds? Well, 2 pounds is a lot.
2 pounds is a lot.
I've
Hold
heard.
on, let me look this up.
I've heard. I don't know.
I want you to double check that, Rob's.
I'm going to do that while she answers the question. So regardless, what do we need to do? Do we need to get rock wool, tickle it, put an automated system?
You can run rock wool, you can run cocoa. If you're trying to grow out of your aquarium, it would probably be generally advised to use some sort of hydroponic media, right? Because it's not so messy and we're not going to be contaminating. That, or if you're running cocoa, no, that's going to lower your pH and you should be stocking your fish to accommodate that, right? Especially if growing the plant is the goal, you would need to pick like whose needs are you trying to prioritize in that situation. My preference would be to run an autoflower. So if, just to recap on what that means, there's 3 different species of cannabis. We have Cannabis sativa, Cannabis indica, and Cannabis ruderalis. Ruderalis is that one that comes up from Siberia, so shorter day periods, right? She's got a faster flowering season. So all in all, from germination of seed to harvest, you're looking at maybe 60-65 days, all in all. That's a wrap. These plants, they don't get as big. Average yield off of a single autoflower will be about 7 to 10 ounces. On average. A little bit easier on your budget too. Smaller plant, not taking up as much nutrients, not taking up as much space. You can rig, I've seen all kinds of like 3D printed buckets that people make. It's basically like a plastic square for your media to sit in. You can accommodate floating. I've done 5-gallon buckets. They make like hydroponic plastic trays that'll sit over. They make all kinds of crazy stuff for specifically like aquaculture needs.
How far can a plant that is a actual leafed plant, can the roots be in an aquarium? Couple inches in the water?
I would say an inch or two is safe, with the mindset that like all that material is wicking, right? So she'll pick up what she needs as long as you're not saturating enough to the point where you're culturing a whatever anaerobic bacteria. Cyanobacteria seems to really like what we do. We see it all the time. And that'll kind of like shit? We get the red, it goes this almost really impressive purple, and then it goes this really kind of like amazing shade of turquoise, and it grows in these like ropes. I could pick up 15-foot stretches of algae because things will stop up in our floor, and just like anywhere else, like I can't clean my room with. When I reset it and there's no plants, I'll go in there with bleach or something else to clear it up. But any cleaner I take in there when there's plants, we run a risk of them picking it up. So basically,
Malaysian
like that.
trumpet snails.
There you go.
No. We have so many filter membranes in our building. I would kill myself. If they ever like fire me, they better hope I don't bring a bunch of those bastards in because it's over.
You could bring the New Zealand ones in. That's even worse.
No.
Gang. Teach them not to f with me.
Please edit that out so that she doesn't.
Yeah, don't get me fired, please and thank you.
Yeah, you heard that, Dalton.
For the podcast only. I worked there for 2 years.
So,
I like my job.
I do have an update, by the way.
So this plant you were talking about being able to put in your aquarium, how tall does it get?
So an autoflower from Harvest, I know like this isn't going to be posted, but probably about, I don't know, 3.5 feet, 4 feet. Genetics play a lot to it. So back in the day, Ruderalis was like ass because they're a shorter lived species. The terpene profile wasn't there, all of that. So they've hybridized them with our other species of cannabis. So you get all of these bred and true hardy genetics that don't taste like dirty coochie. So you kind of get like this weird gray area, right, where there's a standard, but because the genetics have been so muddled, you're like, I'm gonna pop this seed and we'll see what I get, right? Autoflowers it's my preference. I love growing them. I don't get to grow them a lot, or we don't grow them at all in my building. But you'll buy a pack of 10 seeds, right? 10 feminized seeds from the same mom plant, and you could pop them, and you could get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different outcomes, and that's what we like. Those would be different phenotypes of a strain. So like it's kind of hard to tell you what your average is. Always accommodate for at least 4 feet of headspace, right? Because you want to go up so your colas have like the space, and your plant has that time to get dense to support all of that bud.
So we got a lot of questions from that one.
So you're going to need a hell of a basket if that goes into an aquarium to be able to support the weight of the plant. You're going to need something significant.
So unless you're trying to do something flashy where like you want to be able to see or whatnot, the easiest thing for you to do is going to be able to do like one of those preformed stock tanks on the ground and then set up from there. Yep. They're not super hard to support a single well-placed trellis bar and some low stress training where you're tying up your branches so they know where they're sitting. She'll grow right as long as you're not not feeding it correctly or any of these other
don't tie her too tight
that we see.
Okay, so we got a bunch of questions. We got questions. I got to hit these quick because some of them were really specific. One, is that 5 or 6 ounces wet or dry?
Dry.
5 or 6 ounces dry. That's incredible. Number 2.
Upwards of 10.
How dare you? What's wrong with dirty coochie?
Everything. We don't like dirty coochie, right? And more specifically, like if I just got home from the fucking club, maybe dirty coochie passable, right? If I just sat down and I'm trying to roll a blunt or I'm trying to rick my bong, I don't want to smell no dirty coochie. There's a time and a place for everything. Yeah, that is not it.
We do clean, purified, medical grade marijuana in this bitch.
I thought you were going to say coochie.
Coochie.
I thought you were going to say medical coochie.
Get your mind.
Ricky, he's in his bathroom anyway, so.
Get your mind out of the gutter, sir. I did get an update. I did confirm, yes, 8 cannabis plants per person, 4 being mature in Minnesota per person. Primary residence person of Minnesota over 21. So that's the rule.
Gotta be 21.
And 2 pounds, which is still a cartoonish figure
2
per
pounds.
person.
So out of this whole crew, Adam knew it was 2 pounds.
The 7 pounds was a measurement of how they punish you. That's where I got it confused. So yes, 2 pounds is the personal flower total that you can keep on hand. for your
I know
personal
my
consumption.
rules, and I know how to bend them.
You know how to bend the rules, Adam?
That is a retarded amount of weed.
You know, what I've gotten so far from this podcast, what I'm really, really concerned about is what happens if these 30,000 monkeys get out and they storm her facility. It's going to be mayhem. I'm telling you that right now.
No, they're going to get their monkeys back. The monkeys are going to be too high to go anywhere.
That's right. They're going to come there and stay there. And you've seen Planet of the Apes. You're going to be working for a monkey
Jimmy,
in no time. What?
The only hope
I already work for a...
the only hope she has. The only hope she has is dirty coochie weed to keep them away.
Yeah,
all right.
monkeys.
I want to see some Planet of the Apes memes here, people. Come on.
All right. Next questions. This is going to be a long podcast for me, Katie.
If it's anything more about dirty coochie, I just...
All right, so next questions. You said that it would be great for patio ponds. What if you were to hang the weed? For instance, if you already had a plant that you harvested from outside and you wanted to take that stalk, that hemp stalk inside, and you were submerge the roots and hang them into your aquarium, the 2 recommended inches, into the rock wool that you recommended, and hang that plant from the ceiling into your aquarium, would that pose any risks considering you had the appropriate lighting? Do I have to worry about pinching the stalk? Is there some sort of wilting?
The only thing I would worry about, the closest thing I've done to hanging, right? I don't know if you guys remember those infomercials with the topsy-turvy tomato thing.
Oh, I love that.
Tomatoes grew out the bottom of it.
You're hitting my nail on the head.
Same thing with weed.
That's right.
You can do the same thing. Your only issue is that, so for years now, decades now, we've been breeding for yield, right? I want to see that weight. And people kind of tend to lack on their stress training. So if you're growing where you're going to have all that extra weight specifically put on certain parts of your plant, I'm going to sound like a lunatic, but anytime you walk past that bitch, go past her and shake her. Shake the out of her. Actually, because in nature, what they're going to do is they're going to be experiencing wind. They're going to be experiencing all kinds of other elements that are going to fortify that stem. She's going to go, hey, I got to get strong here. I'm going to get knocked the down. And what you're doing is you're forcing her to, like, toughen up a little bit before she's going to produce all of those big-ass buds that are going to be weighing her down and causing all of those bending issues.
That's why you need a monkey working there. Think about it. If you had a monkey that would just go by and shake the tree...
Would you calm the down and eat a banana, for God's sakes?
I tell ya.
And it sounds crazy, but like a lot of people, like when we set up fans and whatnot in your grow, that's obviously you want airflow, but you're kind of trying to constantly stress strain them, especially if you've ever grown like a mother plant. So a mom is just a big vegetative plant that will never produce flowers. She's to produce clones. But you can grow a mom 6, 8, 10, 12 feet, big as you want. But a lot of people have issues growing indoor where they'll not provide the environmental stimuli they need to grow appropriately. And instead of being like, yeah, I'm a tree, she kind of just collapses in on herself because her canopy gets too heavy.
Now, if you want
to... that stress training something you do in your facility?
Absolutely. Stress training is basically any event that you'll do to a plant. So we have low stress and high stress training. Low stress would be like if you've seen people take ties and you're forcing them to kind of grow in a certain way over time. That's low stress. And then anytime you come in and you do like topping event, so you'll come in and hit that first top and that'll cause all of your nodes on the side to stretch, that's a high stress training event. And that can, look like so many different things. Some people do super cropping, all kinds of different grow techniques. So like it gets pretty variable, but yeah.
So would you consider...
Whoa, hold on. My turn.
I got a little stress.
I pulled a number. The topsy-turvy thing you can find on Amazon.com right now, $40 for the topsy-turvy planter. Go, Jimmy, go.
So low stress. Would you consider, like, when you go to your Home Depot or you go wherever, and they've got the bamboo that they've taken, they've intertwined the bamboo, and that's considered low stress, correct?
Yes, sir. So people actually do this with recreational grows. It's called budseye growing, and they do all kinds of crazy woven patterns and whatnot, and as soon as they're done with it, they'll kick that plant out of that vegetative state, change their photo period, and then make it bud with all of these crazy intertwined sections on it. It's very, very cool.
It. Yes, that's cool.
Hell yeah.
So topsy-turvy plants are on Amazon there, Robs?
Yeah, $40.
What about a Ginsu knife? As long as we're talking late night TV. A Ginsu knife, slice your meat so thin that your in-laws will never come back. Something like that.
But they do still have Snuggies just for your, pathetic ass.
I would use a Snuggie.
What about the shake weight?
I can't do that. I watch the shake weight and I just... How do you find these big, large boobed women with a shake weight just doing that?
There's no women that doing it.
Oh, the jack-off thing from
Yes,
TV.
exactly. What a
Don't
great...
get me started on jack-off pups.
Hey there, listeners. One of the best parts of creating this podcast is getting to connect with all of you. If you've been loving the content and are craving more, we'd like to invite you to become a premium member of our podcast family. By joining, you'll unlock a treasure trove of bonus content. We're talking extended episodes, behind-the-scenes peeks, and special episodes that only our members get to hear. Now, here's the best part. You can join us through Discord or Patreon, but we've got a little insider tip for you. If you join us through Discord, you'll get the same fantastic benefits, but at a lower cost. That's because while we love Patreon, they do take a larger percentage of the donations. So by joining through Discord, you're not only getting a better deal, but you're also ensuring more of your support goes directly towards making the podcast even better. No matter how you choose to join, your support means the world to us. It helps us keep the lights on and continue bringing you the content you love. If you're unable to subscribe at this time, please still consider joining the Aquarium Guys Discord server and become a part of our very active, helpful, entertaining, and inspiring Discord community of more than 1,000 listeners. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the episode description to join our Discord community or our Patreon, and please consider subscribing to support the podcast. But remember, Discord is the way to go for that extra savings. Thank you for listening and considering supporting us. Your help allows us to grow and create even more amazing content for you. Now back to the show.
All right, moving on.
Shake weights are the best.
God damn it. All right. So now that we've established how to grow a plant outside, how do we germinate appropriately for that plant? Do we have to use a full seedling, like plant it normal in dirt, then transplant to your aquarium? Or is there any way that we can plant a seed
like
anywhere from our aquarium and get away with it?
Robbie's like this.
So I would never go from like seed to straight water exposure. You're just gonna rot that little bitch out. I know it's old school. Anybody that's like an actual pothead in here, or like a cultivator or anything like that, is like, oh damn, you need to get with the times. I still do a paper towel method. So just like you pop any other seed, right? You introduce it to a damp paper towel, put it in a Ziploc bag, pop that bitch in your drawer, and back in like 4 days or so, see if she's germinated.
I can add to this. Put it in a drawer, but put it in your kitchen drawer in the lowest spot next to a heat register, and it'll go faster.
There you go.
If you forget about it,
and
it
then
smells
from
like bad
there,
coochie.
I like to transfer into a small plug. So whether you're using rock wool or they make little cocoa plugs or whatever the suits your fancy, you plug into there and let her sprout. And then as soon as I get visible roots on the bottom of whatever she's rooted in, that's when it's time to transplant, because you don't want to give her too much time to get her roots out in there, because then when you go to plant her, you're just going to suffocate them. So you want to catch it while she's early, and you're not going to, work backwards when you do your up potting.
All right, I'm going to move to a next category of questions. So I'm going to give a time for some follow-up from Jimmy and Adam. Jimmy first.
Don't use a butt plug.
Nay. Adam.
What?
Question? Okay.
You have a question, comment, concern?
Otherwise, it's my turn. No? Okay, cool. Next one. So we've gotten established of sprouting it, growing it, hanging it above your aquarium to get and then putting your plant into the aquarium to grow the roots, and then establishing it out of your aquarium and using the aquaponics method from your aquarium and using your aquarium's waste from it. Before we move on, is there any concerns using your fish and aquarium waste or any chemicals in the aquarium to be concerned about that you're, like, for instance, methylene blue in the water, using copper in the water? Suddenly you should be taking your pot out, because guess what? That's going to make really disgusting or harmful to smoke pot for you.
So, as far as I know, I'm going to say maybe yeah. I don't know what you're putting in your tank, right? So if you're using tap water, I probably wouldn't. As far as from what I've heard, I know copper isn't a huge concern. I have no idea about methylene blue. Anytime I've done it, it's been like a straight organic system. We're running like a sponge filter and a hob maybe. It's simple pump to recirc. I'm not doing anything but salt if I need it. Right?
All right, then allow me to tell you, do not do that. If you're putting malachite green, methylene blue, any of the harsh treatments, anything even besides a water conditioner, I would consider the water conditioner being the only medication you can put in there that would be safe. Don't screw with it. Take your pot plant out for the time being into a temporary separate water source while you are treating your tank, and you can deem it safe.
And another thing that people don't know is before harvest, that 7 to 10 day window before harvest, you run a purge. So that plant is getting nothing but water. No nutrients, no nothing. And the problem that a lot of people don't realize is if you don't run a purge, you're going to harvest your bud, and it's going to taste like your nutrients. So it's going to taste like chemicals and booty.
Whoa,
you
hold on.
don't-
So wouldn't you like pumpkin farmers, for instance? I know because I have a friend that competes in pumpkins. He
Wow.
at the last week before harvesting a pumpkin, they do milk dosing. So they take the part of the stem, they cut the stem in half, and they put it into a milk bowl to pump up the pumpkin and add flavor. They literally take milk and do this to it. So could you
I
do?
don't know nothing about no milk.
Do you milk
I
pump
just-
your weed? Come on now.
Wow,
we
that-
could make a
I'm
dairy
not
ganj.
pumping anything these days.
No dairy ganj.
Just water. Just high quality.
We could
H2O.
make a new strain
like
together.
it.
Call me, all right?
And then my problem there is I don't need a flavor enhancer, right? I'm not growing a gourd. I'm growing this terpene producing behemoth, and I want to know what.
What
all
if
of
we
that's
what if
doing
we
to my
instead of
flavor
water use a
profile.
soda stream and do like Mountain Dew?
I'm in.
Mountain
You know what?
I'm with you.
I
I'm
think
in.
that's what Florida needs. Honestly, you might be
Yes.
onto something there.
You know, a little
Stop
caffeine, a little
Stop it.
little layback.
Yeehaw, Mountain Dew. All right.
I'm calling my boss.
We got enough problems in Florida without some Mountain Dew hopped up weed smoking hillbillies, okay?
Oh my
How
God.
much worse could it get?
Well, I don't know. I think we should all go down there.
Don't stay.
I think we should
Knock
go.
on some wood, man.
Let's go snake hunting down there.
All right. All right. So
I would do that.
next, Jim's getting a tug toner. All right. So the next lineup of questions I have are the three main components that hemp in all of its parts would go into an aquarium. You have the stalks or stems, you have the leaves, and you have the flowering bud. These three components, when dried, how do they work in an aquarium? Can you put them in an aquarium? And what do they do to the aquarium participants?
Okay. So I've never used them in like a botanical sense.
I have.
I guess that's not true because I have gotten some bigger pieces of leaves. I usually put it into a rapashi blend. That or I'm treating other dry foods with like an oil or a distillate or things like that if I'm really
Let's
getting
hold
that
the
extra.
food for later because I got a whole category for those questions.
What are you, the police?
Yeah, so when I have had introduced like straight leaves, the stems are pretty woody and fibrous, especially off of a mature plant. They last a little longer. My Placo, I only have one, so I can't speak for a variety. He loves them.
Is he happy?
Goes through them pretty quick. I can't speak for how fast they'll decompose or break down in the water by themselves. The leaves dissolve very quickly, and I've had, if it's crawling on the bottom of my aquarium, they're eating the leaves, but that's like nothing special, right? You could do that with basically any botanical, and they eat them. They're very soft. They're not thick stemmed like a magnolia or a almond or whatever, so they go down really quickly. Don't really last long in the aquarium.
And flour?
Flower, I've never introduced. I don't think I've ever put bud in an aquarium.
Okay. So this is where I've taken many months of research. I have friends in the area that they were the first people in Minnesota to get the CBD farming licenses. Minnesota is a very uptight asshole state when it comes to anything to do with the ganj. We were slow to even get medical marijuana, and they were very slow to let CBD farming happen, so they only had test sites. This was, I believe, the second farm in Minnesota to be allowed to do CBD farming. And I cannot tell you a lot of details of who they were, where it was, but I can
Gave
tell
out
you...
plenty of information.
I can tell you that they had CBD that they grew, meaning that it was the illegal strains of the Delta 9 chemical outside of their stuff, and they had to have it regularly tested and part of the Minnesota State program to sell flower bud that was the illegal in the state of Minnesota at the time, THC in their product. But they, of course, had their hidden plants within the field that never got tested, that were the full THC in between, that they had to hide the flowers of so they didn't cross-pollinate to their CBD plants. So I was able to take buckets and buckets of leaves, stems, and reject bud. That's why I have a jar of here of the stuff that they ended up, that they never grew. It was just stuff they found in the ditch that they mowed out, that they didn't want touching their good product. This is literally wild ditchweed that I had in the jar. I
That good stuff.
tried it in both green, semi-green, and fully dried and dehydrated. I did many tests for different species and specimens of all different types of kinds, tetras to guppies to rice fish but mainly crustaceans was the focus. So any of the green leaves, whether it be semi-dried or fully green leaves, they would go in, and I would assume it because of the sugars in the leaf. Yet, after 24 hours, roughly 24 to 36 hours, they would decompose and start causing fuzzing in the aquarium, like different types of mold. Any type of crustaceans, whether it be shrimp, anything introduced, any of the grazing specimens would of course try to pick at it, but because it wasn't decomposing, they would more or less ignore it. Placo species would ignore it unless it was fully dried. If dried, the cannabis species of leaves would work well for a little bit longer than 36 hours in the tank, but even after that, they would decompose not like any type of hardwood, meaning the almond leaves, the oak leaves, any of the catappa leaves, any of the traditional tannin leaching leaves that we use in the aquarium, they would instead kind of fall apart, turn to mush, and they would not break down traditionally like those leaves you intend. And if they would bleed tannins into the water, I did not see a ton of hard tea-colored tannins coming from any of the cannabis, no matter the strain I tested, no matter the amount I put in the water either. I wouldn't even get smell from the water unless it was really gross stuff. The stems, however, I would got a completely different reaction from. If it was green, I would of course get fuzz. If it was dried hemp worked very well. I got a lot of placo attention. I got a lot of crustacean attention. I got a lot of residual stick. What I'm trying to say, I got a lot of help me out. Wood. They stayed together. It didn't break down. They stayed fibrous. That's the word I'm looking for. They stayed fibrous. They didn't break down into goo like the leaves did. They instead stayed like a stick, and it was similar to more of the cholo wood that we continually make fun of on the podcast.
Was it kind of woody?
And it did break down over time, but it lasted much longer, and I did end up leaving a bunch of hemp stems in my aquarium, whether they be the thin ones or thick ones. The flower treated much like the leaves did, depending on what it was, because I got only the quote-unquote ditch specimens. This stuff did bleed stuff into the tank, and it did make the water smell terrible. When I say terrible, I don't smoke pot. I've only consumed THC twice in my life after legalization in Minnesota, and I
love how you threw that out there.
I am a bitch.
Yeah.
After.
I'm a bitch.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm I had 30 milligrams, and I don't remember a whole lot that went on, but I know that Swiss Army Man is the funniest movie I've ever seen in my life. So I know I couldn't walk, and I woke up on my living room floor the next day after 30 milligrams of edibles. So I hate the smell personally of weed. I don't know what good weed is. I know if it smells like skunk, it's probably halfway there. I know that this smells like minty dog shit, so it's probably terrible weed. But yeah, as far as the stuff in my tank, I did have a few ammonia spikes from putting flour in that wasn't fully dried. Once it's dried, I did have the 36 hours where I had shrimp activity. They would eat it. I didn't see any goofy quote-unquote activity, but they were quite hungry after the fact.
So it gave the shrimp the munchies.
And I did have to take it out because of the molding process. So I would treat it like anything else, fruit or vegetable product. If you blanch it and put it in the aquarium, after a day, take it out. But in this situation, instead of blanching, once you've dry it and treat it, put it in the aquarium, and after 24 hours, take it out. I haven't had any adverse reactions. In the testing, I lost 0 specimens, 0 shrimp, 0 fish, and I did 0 water changes for any of these tests on all of my controls. And I did this on a 12-tank test, on a large testing basis over a category of 10 months. Why I did this? I'm
asking myself that exact thing right now.
I had people in the cannabis industry reach out to me saying that they wanted to make a pet product and see if they could package up product that they could sell to aquarists.
They already have. It's called catnip.
Nope. And because of the molding process, and they have to take it out of the aquarium, I recommended that they do not sell it as a product, and they were quite bummed.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so there's my research on just what I did and put forward. of THC and quote-unquote THC-free cannabis products. So now, the stuff I haven't done is feed it in Repashy. The other stuff you're about to tell us.
Yeah.
Oh, before that, any comments on my
that's
research?
been-
Or questions that you had for me in my research?
No, honestly, I'm so glad to hear it, because the problem herein is that, like, I know other f***ing people have done this, but because of, like, prohibition and legalities and all of that fun stuff, it's not published. You can't, there's no nothing. And what is available is very, like, superficial. So before I get into it, I'll kind of touch base on, like, where I started before, you know, any people come for me about, like, local Florida stoner gets fish high, puts them in a box, sort of deal.
Local, not
So-
Minnesota's not stoner, just got a bunch. I mean, I filled the back seats of my car
Guilty.
with cookie containers of. I went there during what they call harvest season in the fall, and they filled my car with
that.
leaves. They literally grabbed scoop shovels and they're like, "How much do you want?" I'm like, "Just keep it coming, Granny," you know. And I had to drive
That's
home like,
awesome.
I don't have a license for this. They do, you know. Like, how am I going to explain this? There's no bud in my car, I guess, you know.
Yeah, you're fine. Just drive safe. So this original study that I looked at before I started feeding, because I originally started using like raw products, and obviously it does break down, and I don't have the time to be doing extra water changes. So like that was immediately just like something I was not interested in messing with. I don't keep a lot of Plecos. I don't keep shrimp. I keep snails for my puffers. So like I don't really have a lot of the ecosystem that would sustain having things go off like that. This study out of an Israel aquaculture farm for Nile tilapia dosed at 0, 1, 10, and 20 milligrams. And any dose over 2 milligrams per kilogram, I think they were noticing reduced aggressiveness and then lowered cortisol levels and like a lowered stress rate from like social stress. So what they're seeing is like a better adaptation to environmental response and like all of the stress involved with being farmed on an aquaculture facility that has on a fish. And then the other aspect to it is they actually noticed in doses of 10 milligrams per kilogram and higher, a lower sperm count.
That was going to be my next question.
This published study does not tell you, there's no published information on the exact levels. They just tell you that it was a noted observation. It's very, very vague and superficial. I don't breed a ton of things, but I breed enough stuff to sample on. They did another leading study they actually do on zebra danios. And apparently they're like the ideal test subject because we share an alarming amount of our genome with them. And then something like 84% of human diseases have an opposite, like a matching counterpart in a zebra danio genotype. So they've been doing like studies from 1999 and onward, which is like pretty good for how prohibition has like affected them being able to do actually anything in a lab. And they didn't notice anything higher than a 20% sperm percentage rate, however they're gauging this. Again, like the study is pretty superficial, so after gathering that, I had to go and do my own thing. They also noticed a decrease in embryo success because doses that were high enough to be sedative, so I think they were dosing at 15 ppm or higher per gallon, lowered the tail movement, which lowered the oxygen rate for the embryo, and they were finding losses. Again, super superficial level information. Could not do any further on that. So I've done this with live bearers. I've done it with danios. I've done it with, what else did I do it with? I've done it with Oscars. I've done it with convicts. Pretty good little sample group. And from what I noticed is I didn't have any losses on my live bearers at all. And this is over, so I'm taking, whether I'm taking dry food or Repashy or whatever it is, I'm taking a distillate. This is just for like using a THC, a 1-to-1 THC to CBD blend. So any kind of tincture or oil. And I'm dosing this out into a week's batch of food, and I'm dividing it out as close that I can. I'm not going to put any guarantees on my dosages, but I did try to get it as to the point as I could. And then with my danios, so there's no parenting activity, right? Notice the same thing. Statistically, maybe lost 15% more than I would, and that's not quite a lot. Still getting danios out the ass, but no noticeable difference when I'm getting them stoned, right? Low dosage, not noticing anything different, no sedative effects, their gills are moving fine. Anything above 10-15, we're getting into that area of they're slowing down and acting a little silly.
So I feel like you're telling us information that you got your fish stoned without telling us how you got your fish stoned.
She just told us.
I'm getting there. So I fed them so many different things, and then it's like a whole different thing, right? So
And one, I did not know until this moment that fish could get stoned.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so for anybody that doesn't know, a lot of people are kind of surprised that any like thing other than a human being has an endocannabinoid system.
Oh, I know.
which is
I know
the
mammals and other things can get stoned. Maybe even a reptile. But
So some of the earliest studies on the endocannabinoid system in like non-vertebrate animals were actually done on hydra because they were one of the first animals with a neural system. Hydra can get stoned, urchins can get stoned, leeches can get stoned, mussels, shrimp, all of these endocannabinoid systems. You can get all of these little critters that we keep in our tank stoned to the bone, which so far high dosages, it has not proven to be lethal. I've gone a little bit higher on like a high volume tank with some bigger fish, and I'm talking like 25 milligrams per kilogram and up, and they are jamming, acting a little slow, but no fatalities.
You know, one of my favorite things
Totally.
that happens up here in the Northland, we're up here with all the snow and whatnot, but we have these these trees in front of our house that get these little berries, and the berries will hold on to the goddamn trees all winter long. So I got it right now. We're doing this in January. I got these 2 trees in front of my house, right in front of my bedroom window, and they got these little berries on them. And nobody touches these berries until spring. And in spring,
They're freezing.
April, May, all of a sudden, 50 to 100 robins show up, and they start partying, and they go up and down our street for 2 weeks, and they empty these trees of these berries and just get hammered off their ass. And
Yeah.
and here's how we know that they're out there doing it. We hear them hitting the windows. They've run into the house. And go, oh, they're back. And then we talk to the neighbors and say, yeah, they were over here Tuesday and cleaned out all my berries. And I mean, they will take an entire tree full of berries, these 100, and they'll just be out there hammered, which is one of my most fun things I watch on National Geographic when you see the elephants getting these certain big fruits that have been fermented. And they're just having the time of their lives. And again, back to monkeys. The monkeys, same thing. And they're out there just getting hammered, and they seem to really enjoy themselves doing that. And so, like, why wouldn't an animal want to be lit up once in a while too?
Yeah, right? That's my philosophy. And as far as like feeding it goes, I've broken it down into, went on my endeavor with psychotropic effects, so the effects of THC, and then we've introduced this new concept. There's a lot of new studies on the entourage effect and whole plant benefit. And the leading studies are proving that it's not even necessarily THC that's the cannabinoid that is getting us high. It's obviously the most well-known psychoactive element that we have present in cannabis, but I don't know if you've seen people popularizing like THCA, which is a non-carboxylized version of the molecule, or we have like HHC or Delta 9 or Delta 10 or Delta 8 or all of these things. And what these are different cannabinoids that will work together in unison that are all naturally present in a whole plant, but no study has been, we're not documenting this, nobody gives a right? We're just here to grow the weed for our cancer patients.
Now,
Quote,
can you explain to me something? I take a gummy, 2 gummies every night when I go to bed, and they're hemp gummies that you get from Amazon. And I've recommended this to several of my friends because as you age, I'm getting up there in age, and you go to bed and you're laying there and your ankles ache and you can't sleep and you don't go into a deep sleep. I started taking these hemp gummies. What's the difference between hemp and THC? I don't understand why hemp is working to help me relax.
So hemp is really vague, kind of. It just means non-THC cannabis, like an industrial version of the product, right?
Okay.
So what you're probably consuming, I don't know if it's advertised as like a CBD or a CBN or a CBC product. You should be able to get some kind of like lab analysis off of there. But
I just pulled up Jimmy's hemp gummies for sleep.
I tell you, I've got 3-4 friends that I've recommended this to, and they've all said the same thing, is that, you know, first of all, these things are dangerous because they taste just like frickin' gummies, first of all. And they're called New Age Advanced Hemp Gummies, 900 milligrams. And the first time I took them, I took one, not knowing what was going to happen.
900 milligrams of what?
Exactly.
No. Hold on. Let me read this thing. New Age Advanced Hemp Gummies, 9,000 milligrams extra strength. gummies. They have
9,000 milligrams of what?
It doesn't say.
Exactly.
It doesn't say.
That's why I want to know.
That's the best thing. So I'm reading the ingredients. It says hemp oil, corn syrup, sugar, pectin, citric acids. So it's basically just a gummy with hemp oil. What in the hell is in the hemp oil? It
There's
is
no like
literally-
active ingredient.
There's no listed active ingredient.
I sleep so good, baby. I tell you.
Jimmy, what the are you eating?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you. You're the expert, babe.
No, I'm dead serious. This is a non-active ingredient listed product. He's chewing down Flintstone gummies with a little bit of mystery hemp oil.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so it's probably some sort of CBD. Maybe I don't think it's. I would think if it's a Delta 8 product, it would be advertised as such. But that's.
And this
Yeah,
is one of this.
I don't know. I'm confused. 9,000 milligrams of what?
It says here, made in the USA, FDA facility, GMO free, and they are literally in bear shape. You eat actual gummy bears
and
to
they
go
are
to sleep.
f***ing delicious, people. Delicious. And
It even says in the reviews, nobody knows what's in them. Nobody cares because they're going to get in trouble when they find out. Eat them and get f***ed up.
now I'm going to tell you exactly why we took these. So one of our local steak places up in Fargo, North Dakota, we go to, and they have fantastic steak. And there is a ton of salts and stuff on the steak. I mean, they have a lot of ingredients on top of the steak. And my wife is a nurse, and her and I are coming home from Fargo, and we had just had eaten there. And she's going, God, I'm getting like restless leg syndrome. And I go, I'm getting restless leg syndrome. And so I said, I'm going to Google this. I Googled, what causes, restless leg syndrome? And they said large amounts of sugar or large amounts of salt. And so then I Googled, what can I do for that? And they said, take these hemp gummies. And we ordered some and never looked back. So it's been fantastic.
I like this review. Not for kids, but may knock them out.
Exactly. And the thing is I wake up.
Dalton's laughing.
Dalton laughing. He's a guy that's probably still sniffing glue.
No, I'm just a guy with 2 kids that I need some excuses to knock out.
Well, here, talk to Robbie, because Robbie takes frickin' Benadryl and gives to his kittens so they sleep.
Okay, that's a real story, by the way. Yeah, if you have whiny kittens and
Yeah.
you want to knock them out, go to the vet so you have an actual excuse that it wasn't you that said so. You're like, you just ask the vet, yeah, when I need to get my cat Benadryl, what's the milligram? And he's like, this many? And then I just give them that every night.
And the
they
kitty
go-
slept.
They go to sleepy time for 8 hours.
And that's how him and Bill Cosby started out.
And then my vet later says, by the way, what'd you give them that stuff for? I'm like, to go to sleep. I'm like, how long do they sleep? 8 hours. I'm like, they're not supposed to sleep that long. I'm like, it worked their whole life. I don't know what you're talking about.
So basically, you and Bill Cosby have been doing this for how many years?
All 6 months of it.
Exactly.
Oh no, they're still alive. Kate, don't look at me like that.
Kate's going.
I love that.
Kate's going. I can't get high enough to get this out of my head.
All right, this
Right
is
now.
don't buy
back to the mystery
mystery.
f***ing gummies. This
Yes,
is a
let's talk
great
about that.
example of what I mean by nobody gives a f*** about a cannabinoid that isn't like some variant of THC, like Delta 8 or Delta 10 or CBD, right? That's what we know. So when you start talking about like HHC and THCO and all of these other things, people are just like, yeah, whatever. But they're learning that together. This is what makes the plant so potent on like not only like a medical value but as like a recreational, like a psychoactive level, right? Your neurological system is only allowed to handle so much of one molecule, right? Your neuron will only accept so much THC clinging to it. But what it will accept is a THC molecule coming in and taking hold. And then here comes this CBN molecule over here taking hold. And then, oh wait, this HHC molecule is also going to come hang out on this neuron. And that's where we're finding these whole plant benefit, much more therapeutic benefits than as opposed to something that is just rocking to the tits with THC, which if we're all being honest, the general public does not need heavy dose of THC, 34% flower, 90+% concentrates. Like the day-to-day human being does not need a dose of THC that high, but we're living in a like market that's designed from a medical standpoint, right? We're medicating cancer patients, we're medicating people who are terminally ill. So it's kind of changing the foundation, and that's a lot of what I utilize.
All right, last update.
It's what I have on.
I found it. on the bottom of this, it says, disclaimer, while we work to ensure that our product information is correct, on occasion, manufacturers may alter their ingredient lists. The actual product packaging and materials may contain more or less or different information that's shown on our website. We recommend that you not solely rely on the information presented here, and always read the label warnings and directions before consuming the product as you receive them.
Jimmy, please stop eating the f***ing gummies.
This is the same people. This is the same people running that f***ing monkey farm. We're going to raise monkeys, but we're not responsible for what the monkeys do. So if the monkeys come over and f*** you up, you're on your own.
You know what it is? It's 9,000 milligrams of pure monkey piss.
I love monkeys.
That's what it is.
It's not even a
The
guaranteed
placebo
9,000
effect is a wonderful
milligrams.
thing.
Wait, hold on here.
What'd you say, Dalton?
Hold on. 9,000.
I said the placebo effect is a wonderful thing.
It is. It is. Absolutely.
Hold on. How many milligrams to a gram? It's 1,000 milligrams
Do
to a
I
gram.
look Canadian to you?
It's 1,000 milligrams to a gram. Hold on. How much is per f***ing gummy?
If I knew we were doing math, I wouldn't even showed up tonight.
Yep. You. All right. Oh
That
my
would
God.
be 9 grams.
Katie.
9,000 milligrams.
Katie. 9,000 milligrams. They're not measuring anything. It's just they're just telling you it's a gummy. They're just weighing the f***ing gummy.
That's the weight of the gummy?
That's a package right there that I can count on.
God,
There's no lying there. They're just weighing the f***ing gummy.
Please stop.
Does
eating
anyone
the gummies.
remember? Does anyone remember when that whole airborne scandal happened and they found out that they were being produced out of some nut job's garage? And
It was a teacher.
It was probably in Florida.
It was a teacher.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, let's
It's the
blame
same
Florida.
thing. This is
What was a nut job? That whole
fly-by-night.
story was great. It was a teacher that got sick of all
You're
our
eat-
students getting sick, so she made a vitamin in her garage and gave it to the students and got in a lot of trouble.
And they give Bill
Yeah.
Cosby shit? That's all he was doing, giving people stuff out of his garage.
All right, I want to
You're
get
the
to
one
this.
eating Haribo gummy bears thinking they're putting you to sleep.
I shits my pants from Werther's Originals. All
Oh,
right,
man.
f- you.
Man, that I don't even want to go on that story.
All right, hold on here. So you sat there and you preached and patted to us about studies of what stoning your fish gets, and you broke the bubble. Fish can get stoned. F- you. Two, you didn't tell us how to get our fish stoned.
Okay, so my preferred method is an RSO product. So for anybody who doesn't know what that means, that's an extract that is water soluble. That or I'll pick something that, I don't know,
So I'm looking
like
for
an
what?
oil or
An RSO
A tincture.
weed oil, a tincture or something?
yeah, anything like that. And basic math, you do it by milligram per kilogram, and then you divide down, right?
So I'm not
So
going
I'll
to grab
take,
my bud that I raise in my backyard and grind it up and put it in my Rapashi.
No. I don't really like to use whole flour or anything like that.
Come on, I
want to
give it to my Playcos.
I mean, you can, but clean up after yourself, I guess. It's probably gonna smell gross.
All right.
So,
fine.
like, cannabis is really, really closely related to hops. So when you add it to water, you tend to get like that funky, fermenty.
You don't like beer, do you?
I love beer, but
just making
I've
sure.
also been around. I used to homebrew a little bit, and I know what that smells like, and it's a fucking shit time.
Okay, so we get this RSO, we get the oil. So what are we talking about here? And for those that have never heard of Rapashi, because I know you're listening, some people this might be your first podcast, and you just set up your 10-gallon tank for the first time. One, I'm so sorry that this is your first podcast you've listened to. I really am. Go listen to other ones. There's beginner episodes for sure. But if you have never heard of a product called Rapashi is a mix where you can make your own fish food. Check it out. It's actually probably some of the best quality fish food you can find out there. Is a wonderful product. So check it out. I think it's Rapashi.com. I know I'm simplifying it.
It's made in Minnesota.
So check out Rapashi. You can get it at Swiss Tropicals. Shout out to that guy. That guy's a gem.
Genius.
Yeah. So get yourself some Rapashi. And what do you do to mix it?
So I do a much lower liquid base than what the package recommends. I like mine to come out a little more like Jell-O. And I've just been in that habit from keeping reptiles, right? So, like, feed it to my bearded dragons, feed it to my other stuff. I'm not trying to serve them like that sludgy, inconsistent mass, right? So I'll blend it down a little bit. I try to do a little bit hotter water than what most people do. I'll boil it, and by the time I'm adding my oils in, or my whole plant, I do a lot of, they make like in capsules with straight up like powdered whatever, whether it's keef rundown or you can get like whole plants, so they're grinding down the stem, the leaves, all the raw product into a capsule so I can break those open, or I can dose out exactly how many milligrams of THC, CBD, whatever I'm doing. But it's not often that I'm getting them stoned. Normally, like, especially if I'm moving the puffers around, that's a stressful thing for all of them. And if you don't know this, puffers, if they inflate out of water and they get air stuck in that organ that they're holding all of their, what should be water in there, and it gets full of air, if it gets stuck, it can kill them. So picking them up and moving them tank to tank, kind of a stressful process in the whole ordeal. Have yet to lose one, so that's all good stuff. But unless I'm doing something like stressful, I'm not getting them high for funsies, unless it's in the name of science, right? Like if I'm doing a podcast episode or whatever.
So you're on a strict, I use pot, I use this RSO product and mix it with Repashy as a tool if I'm going to be moving fish, if I'm going to be doing something stressful, if I'm going to be introducing something, and you're using it as a tool to, chill down, eat a little extra food. I want you to
absolutely. So
co-mingle,
cortisol,
brother.
I'm not a doctor. It's just like my take on everything, right? Cortisol is very bad for us. We know this. Cortisol is bad for most things. They're tiny little prey animals that startle very easily. So I try to my goal is to minimize the effect that I have on that, right? I don't want to freak them out. I don't want to make them in that situation where they're going to, use that level of defense where they're injuring themselves or whatnot. And it's worked out pretty well, knock on wood, but I have a pretty good success rate across the fish room. It's been a pretty good time. And then other than that, I'm feeding them CBD every day. Variety is the spice of life. I think people's damnation is like diet most of the time, right? And you can apply that to anything. Even if you eat the healthiest thing on the planet every single day, you're going to run into nutritional deficiencies. Fish are probably the most opportunistic things that exist on the planet. In a day, what is a fish going to run into where it's going to at least try to take a nibble off of it, right? So, like, not getting into routine with what I feed is probably, like, what I do the most, which makes consistently being, like, a schedule hard. They're getting something different almost every day. And I probably say within the scope of maybe, like, 20 to 30 different things that I'm then, like, mixing up in, like, different combinations and whatnot. My fish don't just get the fish Repashy. They'll get, like, the meat pie or whatever I'm feeding to, like, my other stuff, and they eat it the same, but it has different whole food proteins. So they get like organ mix, they're getting what is, I'm assuming, like a beef heart blend and like all of that other stuff that they're including for monitors, but it's an easier delivered form, right? You're getting the same digestible compound. But almost everything I feed has CBD or some sort of whole plant benefit to it.
And before people lose their frickin' minds about giving this to your fish, now, think about every one of your fish that you've seen in your big box stores. Those fish have all been tranquilized at least 2, if not 3 times to get to your fish store. And what she's doing is a much more natural process than what you would do with the chemicals the harsh chemicals that they're using for transporting fish. I've been importing for years, and you get this stuff, and it looks like it's Mountain Dew yellow, or it's full of methane blue, or Maconite green and stuff. And that's what they're doing to these fish, is they're giving it to them to calm them down so they don't freak out, they don't poop in the bag so much. And so what she's doing is when she's moving her fish, she's just giving them a little relaxation before they move so they're not so stressed out, which is no difference. And I'm just thinking about it, I'm thinking it's much better what she's doing than what they do with the chemicals.
And something interesting I've noticed, I keep a lot of weird stuff. So I've got like a bunch of those Centipoma, the African bushfish. I keep a lot of Bishares, which are coming in wild caught. I keep a lot of other things that are just like wild caught by nature, right? Anything that I have to is sensitive, it's coming from a different water parameter, and I have to drip acclimate. They're getting a dose of whatever milligram I feel is appropriate. It's usually in the scope of 10 to 20 at a time, depending on how big the animal is. And not only do I have, I'm going to knock on wood again, I have never lost anything during the acclimation process. I've lost stuff like the day after that just like never really ultimately adjusted well, but as far as from getting them into the tank and getting them adjusted, not only do I have an outstanding success rate there, but I've done side-by-sides where I'm not going to dose this bag and we're going to see how we run, and they get, the ones that I dose get the munchies. They're eating first, they're adjusting to their environment better, they're getting fat first. So it has been a little bit of a benefit there. Centipoma are notorious for coming in loaded down with all kinds of parasites, and they don't really like medications too much. I normally run my trio, which is like Prazipro, and then what am I running? Maricin Oxy and Icex. Usually that's my staple, and then I'll throw salt in there too. And with most things, even on my puffers, I could hit them with that set wall, and they're good. These bushfish, they really don't take well to medications. So having them be able to come in and get eating off the rip and get a little more stable has been a lifesaver. I've got a group of 9 right now, and they're killing it. This is the healthiest batch I've gotten in.
What do you dose? When people are listening, how do you dose?
So I normally take, like, I'm going to break it down to say like an inch to 2 inch fish is getting 5 milligrams per gallon or 10 milligrams per gallon, depending on how many are in there and like
gallon of
how
what?
big my water.
So you're putting, I'm going for like the consumption of food. So you're getting 5 milligrams in N feeding, whatever you're feeding them.
When I'm making food, I'm dosing it whatever milligram per kilogram, and I'll make like a week's batch of food. So whatever dry foods I'm feeding that week, I'll break down like my small guy stuff and my big guy stuff. Like everybody eats out of one container or the other, and do like the basic math. So I'll divide it down by like, okay, I have this much weight, so that's this percentage of a kilogram, and then drop it down to my milligram percentage. And I try to get it as consistent as I can. I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not anything like that. So I'm not gonna say I get it on par every time, but it's been working out okay. Depending on what solution you're using. With a tincture, I usually get an even saturation rate. I don't have to add anything. If I'm using like an RSO or something, what is that binder product people use for medication?
No idea.
Kim makes it.
There's a lot of
It's gonna
different
drive
ones.
me nuts. Whatever it is, you'll have to use something like that because RSO is not. It doesn't take as well. It needs a little help sometimes. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure exactly what they're suspending it in, but it doesn't take as well as like a tincture that's meant to just like dropping your tongue or whatever and go.
So find a tincture
And
is
then
what you're
I
looking
just-
for.
So you're saying buy a scale is what you're saying.
Yeah, if you don't have a scale, get one. You should have one in your kitchen anyway.
That's right. It's important to get the right amount of garlic in your salad.
So 5 milligrams for the smaller fish per 10
For smaller
gallons?
fish. If we're rocking like, so I would say maybe 3 to 6 inches, I'll kick it up to a definite like 10.
So have you ever just
Maybe more on the side of 15.
screwed up and got your fish super doped up?
Yeah.
What happened?
So I'm going through, and I don't do a lot of planted tanks, and so I had gotten, like, I've run, like, some trials trying to get into it, and it's just not really my thing, right? But I had, like, botanical extracts in a f***ing glass dropper, and I'm going through, and, like, I just did water changes, we're chilling, let me drop a few of these in here, right? So I'm like, a vial, yeah, that sounds about right, I'll come back, and I'm like, it's not colored. What? I'm not seeing that tint. Let me go ahead and put another f***ing vial in. And it, in fact, was not my botanical extract. It was definitely just straight tincture that happened to look the same. And I wasn't paying attention. And I could not tell you. There was probably 100 milligrams, 75 milligrams floating around in a 32, whatever the Fluboflex is, a 32-gallon f***ing tank with pea puffers and glass cats, and I think like I've got 2 synodontists and shit crawls out of the rock sometimes that I'm like, oh hey, I didn't know you were in there. And that was awful.
What happened?
Nothing died. They were stoned for sure, and it was kind of sad because I have probably somewhere between like 18 and 25 pea puffers in this tank, right? So the swarm is pretty interactive. I walk there in my bedroom, so I walk past. They like to see what's going on. They're normally trying to do that. They were they're like swimming sideways, and they've got those weird hummingbird fins, right? So they're just like off balance a little bit. And I was almost concerned, like, I don't know if they're like inflating because I've never seen the little ones puff up before, and I'm like kind of freaking out. I'm sitting there watching them, and I must have watched them for 3 hours and nothing. Their gills slowed down. There's definitely a slower rate of respiration, so I'm like dropping another air stone in the water. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I started doing water changes and like did another 50% after I had just done probably more like a 75 beforehand. So I'm like trying not to do massive water changes with my scaleless fish, like trying not to stress anything out. It was probably an 8-hour ordeal before they started acting right again.
And they're just staring at you the entire time, like, what did you do to us?
Yeah, the glass cats wanted nothing to do with me, they're shy anyway, but there's like one of those cheap plastic skulls sitting in there, and all 8 of them are just like crammed in this palm-sized space, want nothing to do with me. I had to turn the lights off because I was like, I don't know if they're getting like freaked out by the light or whatnot. It was weird. And they're so small, right? They're such small fish, like, I've got a foot-long puffer that probably would have handled that fine, and it had to be my little tiny dudes and my glass cats. But that's the closest, like, I think fatal I've ever gotten. And
I'm not gonna lie. The glass cats are probably one of the weakest things you could have hit with it, and they still live. So good on you.
Yeah, surprise.
I'm surprised they didn't like come up to the tank and then knock on the glass. Hey, how about a pizza? Throw a pizza in.
I was dropping them in, like, because that's my parameter, right? Like, if you're eating, you're fine. You're fine. You're gonna live.
That's what you kept
So I'm
telling.
If you
putting
can
in,
chew, you're gonna
Ram's
live.
Horn snails.
How high
And
were
they're-
you during this?
We've got her on
It was
camera.
my
It's
day
no
off.
comment. No comment.
It was my day off, and I mean, Snoop Dogg
I
don't
don't
know,
know.
you know?
I don't know.
Willie Nelson would
was
have been
stoned.
proud.
Yeah.
As long as I'm eating and they're eating, we're all fine. Don't die, little buddies, because if you die, I'm going to die for sure.
Yeah, and I'm just panicking because, like, everything just keeps getting more expensive, right? So I'm like, I paid, how many, I'm sitting there counting, like, $5 a pop for my f***ing pea puffers, right? I'm like, oh my god, like, my husband's gonna kill me. He's been there every time I've bought him. Like, yeah, I was scared.
Awesome.
That just puts a smile on my face.
I did not expect, honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I did not expect that coming to this podcast, we would get any information that fish got high. I truly didn't believe it. Like, me doing the experiment of leaves, the flowers, the stems, that was not experiments to think that for remotely fish could get high. Did not know that coming into this podcast. I just thought that, there's a lot of stonies and they wanted to, have herbal botanicals in their aquarium because it'd be cool. I had no idea that you could get your fish stoned. I kind of want to do it now.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some serious, there's like a specialty armored catfish where I could see where this would like save a life. If you move some of these particular, river monster creatures, they don't move at a certain size, period. They just pure die. They are so rare to move at a certain size because they don't travel at all well. And the only way they can get these to travel is using horrible things like clove oil, which you're now balancing. I don't know if people know this. Clove oil is used for fish surgeries. You're balancing killing your fish, knocking it out entirely versus trying to keep it de-stressed and half out of it, versus you could just get it stoned and have it have the munchies and calm the down in a bag.
Yeah.
There's
so I
options
really
now.
went down this rabbit hole. I haven't moved my Mabu before. I got him at probably like 2-3 inches long, and he's easily a foot long now, and I should have water in my 150 by like next week. So he's been stoned for probably 2 weeks straight now because I'm trying to get this right before I move him.
Sure.
Very paranoid about getting him out of that tank and across the hall there, but we will see how it goes.
This has been fascinating. It really has been. And, kudos. I love it when we get a guest on this, and they admit their failures, and we celebrate their successes and stuff. And you've been so much information. I thought going into this, I'm like, I wonder what's going to come of this podcast. And this has been one of my most favorite podcasts that we've done. We've done over 100 of them.
And it has nothing to do
I'm
with
flattered. Thank you.
has
It's
nothing-
been a blast. I like being here.
It has nothing to do with the mystery milligram gummies you took beforehand coming to this.
That
Please stop eating the gummies. If you could take anything from this, please find some different.
You know what? I'm going to start a monkey farm up here in Minnesota, and I'm going to do a Planet of the Apes thing. And
Teach them how to make.
Isn't that
gummies.
what they call Rob's basement?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
monkey farm?
he ain't stopping the gummies.
Monkeys are illegal up here, Jimmy.
What? Maybe
They're totally illegal unless you are handicapped in a wheelchair. You cannot legally have monkeys.
you've
in
seen me
Minnesota.
drunk enough. When I'm drunk enough, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't move.
I mean, we got a buddy at the zoo
What the
that
f*** are handicapped people in a wheelchair doing with monkeys?
They use them to pick up things. They're the only
Sure.
people that I know of that can use them. 'Cause they can like go and get like pencils and get shit out of cabinets and stuff.
Yeah,
it's
especially-
in the rule.
Give them a reacher grabber.
They're-
Back to late night TV, man. Just
They're
have
making
one-
sexy.
Hold on, the
Quadriplegics.
reacher grabber is what the monkey's for. It's a reacher grabber. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody wants to see that, Robbie.
Yeah.
I've learned more about bad coochie and stuff tonight that I even chose to want to know.
What I
Lots
want
of
to know.
information.
Well,
So here's my question: did the pea puffers? Because like Robbie brought up clove oil, and that is to stun fish. Did that like stop or stun them in any way, shape, or form, or did it just make them like? Would it if you'd have kept it without the water changes? Do you think that it would have like really stopped them?
Honestly, no. And I've been tempted to do like another run, maybe not with such a heavy dosage, but something that's definitely considered large scale.
Hear me out.
So my theory behind this is that cannabis in any form is known as a sedative, not an anesthetic, right? Clove oil itself, people recommend it to euthanize your fish. You get it on your skin, it's pretty irritating. It's not a friendly substance. So I don't think it would have had anything like that. And they never really, there was no stop. There was some slow down and some discoordinated movement, but there was never any like signs of true distress. None of that spiraling or like floating behavior that would really start like setting off alarms or anything like that.
I have a test. You need to do a control, all right? Hear me out fully. I'm being honest here. Get yourself, maybe a 20, a 30 gallon, right? Get it set up, cycled, fully set up, and get yourself a handful, 10, ish, upside down catfish. Treat that with like 100 100 milligram, and just, if they're right side up, you fucking know. You know what I'm saying? If they're right side up,
I'm gonna make a killing selling right side up catfish.
Oh,
Yes.
you've got to do it.
At that moment, you've won.
So do you think if you did it with a fish with a labyrinth organ, that it would have problems getting up to the surface to breathe if you gave it, one of those really high doses? Because you said you do the African bushfish, which I think is a labyrinth organ fish, right?
Yeah, they are.
I believe
Yeah.
so, and I've never hit them with a super high dose. The highest dose they've ever been hit with THC is when I was pulling them, like getting them out of the bags and whatnot. And they didn't even have the same. I hit them with probably, I'm going to say it was a little more than 15. So I'll say like 18 milligrams per like gallon of water that they were sitting in. And there was not the same level of disorientation. They're usually pretty meek and mild fish, very shy little Muppet looking dudes. Not the same as, I've had probably 3 different batches of them come through. And out and about, not as shy, not as sensitive to me having other lights on in the room. So like I'll have the tank up top or wherever they are off, but if I've got other stuff on in here, there's still a good amount of like ambient light. And then they were eating same day. Like I think I offered them food maybe an hour and a half later. And
That's kind of
eating
nerve.
I'm just
hanging out.
wondering, I'm just wondering if you gave a beta or a gourami some crazy high dosage like you accidentally did that other tank, are they just going to sit on the bottom and be like, fuck it?
I'm kind of curious, and like that's another thing that's not in my scope, right? I'm not a beta person. I do want
on here.
I want a giant gourami.
Hold on.
I think I'm doing that after I move my Mabu over. So maybe we're gonna have to run some experiments.
What
on a
if
big
you took
fucking
like a
gourami.
beta or a gourami, you fed them the rapashi weed, right? And then on top of it, right when they get stoned, you cover the tank up, some saran wrap, and then make sure that you Doug Benson that shit and fill in like a nice, good marijuana bake and get that good smoke in there. So when they go up, grab
Hotbox them.
hot box at the top, and when they get that good, gulp air, they're getting that fresh smoke.
What is wrong with you?
I did. You know what? I did have a beta like the first year I was getting back into all of this.
Everybody
and I
did.
felt bad. Some jackass little kid picked up one of those beta cups at a Petco, and it was one of, what do they call them? They're like a mustard beta or whatever. He was cute, and I was like, and I copped this beta from this kid. I definitely shamelessly did that and took this beta home. And he's in one of those, or was in one of those 50-gallon Flubel Flexes, the little cubes. And it sits on my dining room counter. So there were several times where like I'm walking by and he's like, "Hey yo, it's that bitch that brings the food." So he comes zooming up to the surface and I just lean over and they've got the lid with the food opening. So I would just and he hit the surface of the water. But I never saw him get like faded. He was never like stoned. But he would
That's
hit
'cause
the
you held it too
surface of
long.
the water repetitive times, like
Amateur.
he'd come back, he wouldn't hit it and then run away. So.
Amateur hour.
Amateur fish.
Yeah.
I'm wondering,
I don't know.
could you put some of the liquid in one of those little ultrasonic foggers that some people put in paludariums, That's see.
Ooh.
Hold
on.
Light bulb moment. Light bulb moment.
Hold on, we gotta be careful, because if you put oil residual on top, they're not gonna get a mouthful. So
But the other thing is those ultrasonic foggers have a tendency to get really, like, that oil would probably mess with that top of it and it f it up.
They do make like dry herb vaporizers, so you could probably just take the hose off of that. And
There you go.
You get those and a giant gourami, and that thing will be living its best life.
I can't wait for the phone calls, the emails we get from people. They go, "You're kidding, right?"
The outrage.
Yes, we were kidding.
All right, just a disclaimer at the end of the podcast here. We are not telling you to give any cannabis products to your fish. This is all...
Or children.
People have done this at
Or
their
pet
own
children,
risk,
no.
own expense, and purely for the sake of
This is for purely entertainment.
helping their pets. Yeah. Don't do what you don't know on the supervision of without the supervision of experts. Jimmy,
Yes.
you got any other questions?
No, I got to talk about my favorite stuff today: fish.
And old
Monkeys.
people's gummies that
Monkeys
we
and
don't
gummies.
want in.
Yeah,
Adam, how about you?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm done.
I'm done. I wash my hands of this. Is this one of those podcasts, Adam, where you feel like you need to like crawl in the shower and curl up in the fetal position and just cry a little bit?
No.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Dalton.
No, I think we need a fish room tour at some point. But other than that, no. I've had a hell of a lot of fun.
This has been fascinating.
For those that want a fish room tour, you can directly pay Katie at her PayPal. If you message her in Discord, her username is Bones. That is between you and her, and to accept her money. Find her on a Discord. The link is in the description. Katie, any last remarks? Anything we missed?
No, I think we covered it all. This was very fun. Thank you for having me.
It was an honor. Any last shout-outs you want to give to someone?
I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Hey, Katie, where are you buying your fish? Because, I mean, you've got some interesting stuff that you don't see a lot at pet stores. Who's your local pet store guy that you want to give a shout-out to?
So my local fish store is a mom and pop shop. They do, like, dogs, cats, everything. And then the person I get my fish from the most is actually in this server. He works for Lucky's Aquarium out of Massachusetts. That's where my Mabu came from. That's where several of my Bashirs came from. Wonderful, wonderful livestock from them. Great people.
Great.
And shout out to your husband for letting us, commandeer you for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, tolerating me and my fish nonsense. It's a blessing.
Indeed. Well, I have no other notes other than I'm definitely throwing away this ditchweed because I think it's finally gotten all of its comedic value out and no one's going to consume it. So
No, that's not going to happen.
it's disgusting.
I think you should smoke it out, Robbie.
I refuse to smoke anything. I smoked a house once when I was a kid and my lungs are ruined. So I don't smoke drugs and I don't drink. I only consume Vicodin when my wife lets me.
There we go. That escalated in a hurry. I don't do anything but Vicodin.
God,
Maybe some
Hollywood
oxycodone.
sober.
I had a kidney stone 2 weeks ago. My wife gave me a V. Oh my God, I wanted a kidney stone again. It was so good. There's little things on this planet better than Vicodin. I'm not gonna lie to you people. Well, on that note, if you like the content you're listening to, do not cut that out. If you like what you're listening to, check us out on a Patreon. Come to Discord because it's cheaper and you get the same content if you do the Discord subscription. It's in the link in the description. It helps pay for this podcast and help pay Dalton for his hours of editing this trash. Because trust me, if you listen to the unedited stuff, you would know how much he has to go through. So thank you, Dalton, and please get baked tonight. Bye, friends. Thanks, guys, for listening to the podcast. Please go to your favorite place where podcasts are found, whether it be Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever they can be found. Like, subscribe, and make sure you get push notifications directly to your phone so you don't miss great content like this.
Hold on, wait a minute. Fish are kind of cool.
I shoved one up my butt.
Massive.
They be packing.
We got enough problems in Florida without some Mountain Dew hopped up weed smoking hillbillies, okay?
Stoned to the bone.
And you got to get your pre-drunk on.
He's a day walking normie.
Math hurts.
Goldfish are trash.
What's wrong with dirty coochie?
I want to see that weight
I got your grandmother drunk.
to keep them from being big ugly bitches.
You people.
Do I look Canadian to you?
Just rocking to the tits.
I am a bitch.
Yeah.